Gary Lineker's decision to continue sharing his political views with his social media followers has been slammed by a former BBC executive. Roger Bolton, Panorama's former editor, told GB News on Thursday evening his views on Lineker's latest outburst. He shared with presenters Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, "The plain fact is, if you're focused on the future of the BBC, like the Director General, you're faced with the pressures you've got under the cuts that have just been made, effectively large cuts in BBC spending. With all the other problems you're facing like the Middle East, the last thing in the world you want is this story running and running and running." And if Gary had really put the BBC in public service broadcasting first, he would have shut up. During the interview, he expanded, "He clearly believes these things, he's a genuine guy, but this is crazy." The Match of the Day host has been widely criticized after his latest posts on X, formerly known as Twitter, despite new guidelines being introduced by the broadcaster. Bolton told GB News listeners that the BBC's media editor has claimed the latest guidelines were as clear as mud. "So there's a question of whether you think he crossed the guidelines and whether they can be proven clearly in a legal context," Bolton shared. "But I think he has, and the incoming chairman thinks he has. Now, the incoming chairman, if H is approved by Parliament, Samir Shah did say it's a question of how egregious it is." The interview comes after Lineker shared on X that he had signed an open letter calling for the UK government to throw out its Rwanda policy and come up with a fair new plan for refugees. Earlier this year, Lineker was briefly suspended for likening the Conservatives to Nazis over attempts to take back control of the country's borders. Shah told MPs who are on the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, the former footballer's social media posts seem to breach new BBC guidelines for presenters. "As far as I am aware, the signing of the letter did not breach those guidelines," Shah shared. But the politician added, "The more recent tweet where Mr. Lineker identified two politicians does on the face of it seem to breach those particular guidelines." He added, "I would imagine the BBC is now looking at that and considering its response." Shah also said Lineker's behaviour was not helpful for Gary Lineker, the BBC or the cause he supports. GB News airs daily on Freeview, Freesat, Sky, YouView, and Virgin Media.